executive director of Transition US, and Elvia, who's our communications and outreach lead. But we wanted to make space for you to get to know Elvia, at least on a deeper level. She felt very connected to this theme of repair. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Elvia, and actually stop screen sharing. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to send it over to you.
Hi everyone, I felt inclined to make a video regarding my own journey with repairing my body, regenerating my body, and but yeah, I recently.
Could please mute if you're not chatting. Please mute. Sorry.
Oh yeah, and I just felt inclined to make a video, and I just thought I should share it with you all. I'm gonna share my screen, and all right, I don't know if y'all could hear it. I'll just play it. I wanted to share some of my own personal.
Can we raise the volume, Elvia?
With what repair means to me and how I've been able to deal with my own inflammation.
Uh-oh. The sound cut out on my end, Elvia. Are folks able to hear? No? Okay. Elvia, we're not able to hear the audio coming through.
Okay. Just give me 1 second. Let me just figure this out real quick. Okay, I guess I could just kind of also give a little summary of what I was gonna talk about in that video if this other alternative doesn't work. Let me just pull that out right now. It's coming up. And I'm sorry I didn't work the audio, but okay, I think this should work now. With what repair means. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I thought the audio was gonna work. All right, hopefully this works. It's me and how I've been able to deal with my own inflammation in my body. So like in 2020, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, and I just generally didn't know. I had a lot of symptoms throughout my body, and it took some time for me to finally listen to my own body telling me that there was something wrong. For some reason, I was in some kind of denial that anything was wrong, and I generally just didn't really want to go to the doctor and receive any bad news. But I think my pain got to a point where I just couldn't ignore it any longer, and I decided to go to the doctor, and she ran some tests and asked me some questions such as like if I've been able to sleep a lot or if I sleep a lot basically, and like other pains. And I literally would feel like some kind of like an inflammation within my body, and I would tell the doctor like this is where I feel it. And for me, I felt it all throughout like different parts of my body. It was mostly random, I would say. Like the pain would just start somewhere and then sort of change to another point of my body and just like change all over. And so I didn't know, where exactly my pain was coming from. And so she ran those tests, and she told me, yeah, it might be an autoimmune disease. And I went back home, waited for those test results, and I searched up on the internet what is out there about autoimmune, and I was able to find some inspiring stories of others that have gone through this process of going through a holistic approach of eating just fruits and vegetables and some healthy oils such as coconut oil, um, olive oil, avocado oil, and I generally stick to those three oils to this day. And there's a lot, and through my research, I was able to just kind of see how colonization has really impacted a lot of people's health and how broken our systems are, that causes a lot of people to have some kind of inflammation in their body. And this inflammation can look like anything. It could be like cardiovascular diseases, heart diseases, lung diseases. And for me, it ended up being rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. And So I ended up going through a very emotional sort of journey for myself, trying to ground myself and have the hope, have definitely just trying to have a positive mind that if I were to just continue eating all these vegetables and fruits and oil, that I will be able to reduce my inflammation. And for me, I definitely try to keep looking up other inspiring stories of other folks that have, definitely have had experience already with years of eating and doing all this sort of holistic approach. And through that, I definitely found a lot of hope and kept going with this diet that I ended up finding, which is called the Autoimmune Protocol diet. And I definitely recommend it to anyone that wants to decrease their own inflammation within their body. But generally speaking, I definitely think like I was able to see a lot of parallels between my own inflammation within my body and the inflammation that the earth is experiencing and that our communities are experiencing. And I just wanted to share some of the parallels I have seen through my own journey. For example, the doctors just wanted to give me medications that would not address the root causes of my symptoms. Instead, it was more of a superficial type of approach that was sort of help with my pain, but at the same time it was at the expense of making it worse at one point because those medications brought in some different side effects, and for me I just didn't want that, and I ended up through the fruits and vegetables addressing more of the root causes of my symptoms and my inflammation. And to this day I've reduced my inflammation by 80 to 90%, and even though there's still the 10% lingering, I feel very confident that through my mindset and through eating well, I'll definitely be able to reach some sort of reversing my autoimmune completely. And I have that same hope for what's going on with climate change. I have the same hope that we're going to be able to completely regenerate our own earth if we were all to have the right environment. And we also got to make sure that we hold a lot of those corporations accountable and don't let them just have a greenwashing solution that only addresses the very superficial problems with climate change, and instead actually address the root causes. And a lot of it is capitalism, colonization, and it caused so much harm that we just gotta make sure that we actually listen to our bodies, listen to what our communities are saying. A lot of Black Indigenous communities out there have been having the solutions for centuries, and we gotta make sure that we uplift and amplify their messages and listen to them. Another thing I wanted to just share before, I know this is a lot of information, and I'll definitely be talking more about this journey in our future podcast episode that we're launching, Regeneration Nation podcast. If you're all interested to hear more, but I think it's important that we build our relationships that we have with one another. I think colonization has done a really good job of making sure that people don't connect as much, and has caused so much harm. So we just gotta repair those relationships that we have with one another in our communities, and that there is a better world possible. I feel like I definitely have been feeling that within inside of my body. I've been feeling better. And I know that for me, this is just a very individual case, but there's a lot of other inspiring stories. And the same way that I looked out to those inspiring stories of other people being able to like reverse their autoimmune, I feel like we have to keep reminding ourselves of stories of other communities that have already done the work and that they already have decolonized a lot of their structures and a lot of their symptoms. And generally, the broken systems that we have in our society is what has led for inflammation throughout our bodies, throughout our communities. And it's time that we just make sure that we work together, build those relationships, build those communities so that we can repair our future, our climate, our environment, ourselves, and everyone. And yeah, thank you all so much for listening. I know this is a lot, but I hope you all have a good day. Bye.
All right.
Yeah, that was the video I worked on for a bit. Let me just stop sharing. But yeah, I just wanted to share with you all because I think it really does tie a lot with what we're talking about. And I think like having that personal experience definitely helped shift, you know, my mentality that it is very possible. I know a lot of people might be feeling some kind of climate doom at points, and that's totally reasonable. But I think like we should ground ourselves and look to the solutions that already exist, also within like the dirt and seeds and like the beauty that exists there between like what's growing in our soil and leaning into that. And I guess wanted to continue sharing our presentation. But so some symptoms of our sixth system is extractivism, health wealth disparities, mental health outcomes, biodiversity loss, loss of culture, language, transactional versus relational. And yeah, but I think, you know, for the podcast, we will definitely talk more about that if you all have any more questions or any thoughts. But I guess that was my short introduction, a little bit more of my own personal context with everything. But yeah, Jess, do you want to like keep going with the presentation?
Yeah, since you have the PowerPoint up, Elvia, do you mind just
Yeah,
hitting slideshow and then I can tell you when to go
so
next? But I really appreciate you sharing your story, Elvia, and I think that's another really important reminder for this series. Like, we're trying to build community, and that means being vulnerable. That means sharing our stories and recognizing how do these impacts show up in our own life? What are skills, what are experiences that we have that we can lend towards the repair, towards the response that allows us to again build and share and live into these new worlds. And I say new worlds because we're talking about an entirely different way of relating to our earth. In terms of what I'm trying to leave behind for the next generations, I know, like Elvia mentioned, we are in a sick system. There are plenty of reminders that we get each day about that. And like Elvia shared within her own journey, connecting with stories around success. So, Elvia, you had shared with me, like hearing about other people who were able to navigate the diagnosis of an autoimmune disorder and to see the steps they took. It's one of the most beautiful things I think like we should appreciate about these kinds of networks. Our ability to do that kind of peer-to-peer learning, to experiment together, and to really have a sense of responsibility for the places that we call home. So place-based, story-based, really making sure that we're emphasizing relationships in this kind of work is something that we really want to drive home. So Elvia, we can go to the next slide, please. So I want you to think about this R4 framework, which again, we've gone through this theme of resistance, which we talked a lot about stopping harm. How do we get our feelers up and gain that sense of deep awareness around where the harm is happening in our communities? Again, plenty of examples that we can point to around racial injustices. We can take a look at health disparities in this country. We can take a look at wealth disparity, like all of these different things that again tell us the system, the way that these things are put together is unbalanced. It's broken and it's harmful. So tapping into this theme of repair, we want to take a look at how we can transform these things, right? And then even deeper, the next phase, the next session we'll go into is reimagination. How do we completely reconceptualize what we even think we need and what we even think is possible? The next one, regeneration, is like creating these virtuous feedback loops in our communities, creating a new kind of cultural response that allows us to move into a place of thriving for ourselves, for our children, for the most vulnerable, and for the land itself. So think of this as a portal. Kind of, this is what this imagery is supposed to convey, like a portal of sorts. What is possible if we start to really implement this framework in the different projects that we take on, our different ways of relating to the needs of our communities? How do we stop the harm? How do we fix what's broken and heal what needs to be healed? How do we create space for radical imagination, experimentation? And how do we keep that system going and thriving and innovating and evolving? So Elvia, we can go to the next slide. So we're going to go into a breakout room activity. We'll have some pairs, maybe a group of 3 or 2. So these are the questions I'd like for us to kind of sit through. We're also really inviting of any organic conversation around this theme of repair that may come up in your breakout room, but use these questions to anchor. What region do you call home? What needs to be repaired or healed in yourself or in your community? Again, we can have a conversation about that, our relationship to self and community. And then share an experience where you helped to fix something or had to deal with the impact of something being broken. How did that experience make you feel? So spend some time together. I'm going to go ahead and set up those breakout rooms. And then we'll come back and kind of share any reflections that may have come up for us. But again, we want to hang out with each other. We want to get to know each other's personal contexts and stories. So use these questions to anchor, and then also feel free to explore. We're going to have about 20 minutes in our breakout rooms together. So enjoy. I'm sending us off. I'm going to go ahead and open all the rooms. You all should have an option to join your breakout room.